Sup dudes? So since you saw my Oscar predictions video, I mentioned that I was gonna do a Best Picture nominees ranked video, so here it is. So what do I think of the nominees? They're pretty great, but I also want to get into some snubs at the end of the video, so let's go! Mank is by no means a bad movie. In fact, in a sense, I kind of like it. Almost every ounce of filmmaking is done wonderfully here. The shot compositions, the sound design, the production design, the score, all that feels so much like a film that was made in the 1940s. And it's fantastic, especially the score. The performances from everyone are really great, but the standouts are Amanda Seyfried and Tom Burke. But just because a movie looks and sounds pretty, doesn't mean it's pretty altogether. I feel so bad about saying this, but I think the script is kinda trash. I feel bad saying that because I know this was written by Fincher's father, and he just wanted to pay tribute to him. But rewrites wouldn't have hurt. There's little to no soul here. There's little to no reason to care about anything that's happening, and I think that lies with the title character. Herman Mankiewicz is not a very interesting person to follow, and I definitely don't think he needs a movie based on him. His conflict is something that we've seen in movies a million times before, and they stretch it for 2 hours, and it becomes so boring. There were points where the dialogue really did not feel like the time period. It felt weirdly modern and felt so stilted. It was hard to understand what they were talking about, at least for me, and it felt like the actors didn't even really know what they were talking about. I know Fincher wanted to pay tribute to his father, who wrote this script a long time ago, but I wish he would have cleaned it up a little. I wanted to love this. I really do love Fincher, but this just isn't for me. Yeah, this kinda gets worse the more I think about it. The Trial of the Chicago 7, again, is by no means a bad film, but it just kind of feels like the Green Book of this year. It very much has good intentions, but as I was watching this, I kept thinking that the actual trial had to have been much more brutal than what was actually shown. And after I looked it up, it most certainly was. This movie plays a moment in history that was incredibly serious and traumatizing, very safe. It comes across as so unforgivably cheesy. What's even more frustrating is that it's a civil rights film, but the focus is on how white people saved the day. It's another white savior movie. They hardly focus on the Black Panthers at all, and that was so frustrating because for one, I thought Kelvin Harrison Jr.'s portrayal of Fred Hampton was great, but we hardly get time with him. So much so that when he gets killed off, I didn't feel anything. I would have loved to see more of Bobby Seale too, by the way, which is weird because the trial is centered around him. I'm sorry, but that's just not excusable. Not only that, but the movie looks so ugly. It looks like a made-for-TV movie, and at that with probably the cheesiest music of the year. Oh my god, it is cringe. But let me be positive for a change. The acting is definitely for the most part outstanding, with the standouts in my opinion being Frank Langella and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. I hope I said that right. Sorkin's scripts are always great, but I'll be honest, I'd be pretty annoyed if he won, and I was definitely never bored. The performances were what carried the film, and everything else is just forgettable. Well, here it is. Yeah, I mentioned that my opinion of the movie has changed drastically, and here's why. Spoilers, by the way. This film takes a topic that is so traumatizing and humiliating, and kind of romanticizes it. I know this movie is a work of fiction, but this is something people deal with and are scared of every day, and the worst sin was making the main protagonist, the person you're supposed to root for, a complete psychopath. Let me be clear, Cassie has every reason to be angry. She has every reason to want revenge, But in this movie, she knows how traumatizing sexual assault actually is. But the way she responds to it is to get her ex-friend drunk and make her believe that she was raped? And make the dean of her old school believe that her daughter is being raped? That's insanely messed up. No one should go through that. That makes me lose any kind of sympathy I had for this character. And the ending. First off, any pro-women message the movie had is immediately thrown out the window when you show a woman being brutally suffocated and struggling for her life, screams and all, for over 2 minutes. And right after that, you think it would take a much darker turn or the film would just end right there, but nope. The tone shifts to incredibly triumphant and even intentionally goofy? The hell? So what, am I supposed to just be happy that she died? What do you want me to feel? Yes, the rapist going to jail is satisfying, but not for the rape, for Cassie's murder. And if this movie wanted to take the realistic approach, it's unlikely she would receive justice. Also, why stage the ending as a cheer-worthy moment? But anyway, I do still like the movie, despite my problems with her character. Carey Mulligan is absolutely phenomenal. I wouldn't be upset if she won. The cinematography and color palette was such a big highlight. I wish that it would have been nominated for Best Cinematography, because there are some really breathtaking shots here. The film is perfectly cast. And finally, the soundtrack absolutely slaps and fits the film so well. For the most part, it is an entertaining movie, but God, it's so hypocritical, and I can't stop thinking about that. Okay, now we're getting into the movies that I love. The Father is pretty fantastic, though I probably wouldn't watch it again. The film is intentionally very realistic and disorienting to a point where Anthony Hopkins' experience becomes ours. And it's done so well that it automatically became one of the most depressing movies that I may have ever seen. The film is Alzheimer's from the point of view of someone suffering with Alzheimer's. And how the film is edited, performed, staged. I seriously hope I never get Alzheimer's. This sounds terrifying. They went out of their way to make sure you understand this kind of suffering, and it's so uncomfortable, and I mean that in the best way possible. I know I have a lot to choose from, and Silence of the Lambs exists, but this is probably my favorite performance from Anthony Hopkins. He is absolutely devastating in this movie, while also maintaining an extreme amount of energy, and it never felt out of place or phony. There's one scene near the end that had me in tears just for his performance alone. You'll know what it is when you see it. Anyway, it's best to just go into this movie cold, and this film most certainly deserves your attention, but I'll probably never watch it again. This movie. Hell yeah. Judas and the Black Messiah is an adrenaline-filled, devastating movie that everyone needs to see, and I loved every minute of it. The energy of this movie totally caught me off guard. I know the movie advertised itself as such, but I didn't expect it to be this fast-paced, this emotionally resonant, and this passionate. Shaka King does truly an amazing job directing, and he absolutely should have gotten a Best Director nomination. He brings the story to life and goes full force with it. You can feel the anger everywhere as well as the importance, and when the payoff finally happens, it's devastating. Right when the movie ended, I was in such a state of depression, mainly because it's so relevant today, and this actually happened. It doesn't sugarcoat a damn thing. This is what I wanted the trial of the Chicago 7 to be, and this is the Fred Hampton I most wanted to see, not just in that movie, but in any movie. I am not exaggerating when I say Daniel Kaluuya gives one of the best performances I've seen in a long time. The amount of energy and commitment he has to this role is beyond incredible. He not only disappears into Fred Hampton, but I can't think of anyone who can play that role other than him. He gets the objective Best Performance nominated for any acting category this year. Lakeith Stanfield also should not be swept under the rug. He is absolutely devastating in this movie, and I am so happy he is finally getting the recognition he deserves. Also, Dominique Fishback and Jesse Plemons, they're all so fantastic. This is a perfect example of a film where everyone was on the exact same page, and it worked out beautifully. My only complaint, and I'm in the minority when I say this, is that I don't really like the score. It's not a bad score. It was just used inappropriately in some scenes. Some scenes I feel would have been much more effective without music. It took me out of the movie a bit. But other than that, yeah, this movie slaps pretty hard. Listen, I know I said this was my second favorite movie of the year when I did my list. Well, my list changed a bit. Though Minari is still absolutely in my top 5 and still absolutely worthy of my perfect score of 5 out of 5. It's just after rewatching a couple other films, there are just some that I like just a little bit more. Minari nonetheless is still a beautiful, beautiful film, and is in my top 5 of the year, if not top 3. It showcases the American dream in adaptation in a way that feels so obviously personal and passionate, and that's what makes this so special. And that's what makes Lee Isaac Chung a director to look out for, and that's what makes every single performance stand out. Stephen Yeun in particular stand out the most. And that's what makes Emile Moselli's score quite possibly my favorite score of the year. I don't know, it's neck and neck with Emma. But my final point is that Minari is true beauty, and it definitely shouldn't be missed. I've already talked about this movie to death in my 2020 video and my review that I made for the movie, so if you want to check that out, go ahead. I don't know what else to say that hasn't already been said. It deserves all the nominations it's gotten, and it's one of my new favorite A24 movies. I know you probably didn't expect me to put Sound of Metal this high, but the more I watch this movie, the better it gets. And even when I first saw it, it's been very important to me, especially as someone who's hard of hearing himself. Sound of Metal feels like a love letter to the deaf community. The film, with its sound design, use of subtitles, use of actual deaf people to teach someone who's new to the community how to adapt to a new world, feels like not only a way of support, but a way to teach those who might not fully understand. And not only does it feel like a love letter to that community, it's a story all about acceptance. Accepting a whole new world, accepting a permanent change in someone you know and love, accepting the other people in that community. The first time watching this, the only issues I had were just pacing, but rewatching the film, I noticed that the length started to not really bother me anymore. When I first saw this, I criticized the editing, but after rewatches, I realized how ingenious the editing actually is. In a sense, it gives you a perspective of Ruben's perspective. I really liked the film before, but a rewatch got me way more engaged and way more emotional, like I was being spoken to. Seriously, guys, rewatches very much help. This film just gets it right. And I went from not really considering one of my favorite movies of the year to considering it my second favorite film of the year. And it all comes full circle with that final shot, which in just a couple minutes is able to capture absolute catharsis. Yep, you saw this coming. It's still my favorite movie of 2020 and quickly becoming one of my favorite movies of all time. Why? Well, first off, just look at it. The overall atmosphere and aesthetic was tailor-made for me. But even with the look and aesthetic, Nomadland is one of the most humble and calming films you can watch. Not only did it have a perfect release date, but with the pandemic or not, Chloe Zhao did something truly beautiful with this. She holds her faith onto everything and gives so much development on everything and everyone, giving the time of day for even the little things in life. Little things that seem trivial, but you don't realize how beautiful they actually are. It's a film without questions or judgment to anyone. Instead, it just sits and listens to whoever is speaking and reminds them why they matter and why what they're doing is valid. That right there is the beauty of Nomadland. It shows us that everyone and everything matters, and it allows the audience to see the good in everything again. Not everything has to be dark and brutal. Not everything has to be unaccepting. Life at times can be humble and forgiving. The world can present itself as unforgiving and ugly, but life does have those moments of love and acceptance, and it's beautiful. Chloe Zhao, I believe, made the ultimate tribute to life, and she did that by just letting people talk. Letting people talk about their experience, following them as they live their lives, listening to their philosophies. She lets us experience what Fern and all the other nomads experience, and lets us realize that life is so much more beautiful than you think. It might be fragile, but it never ceases to be beautiful. Alright, let's talk snubs. Never, rarely, sometimes, always. Justice for this movie. This is unforgivable. First off, Sydney Flanagan gave my absolute favorite performance of last year, showing such vulnerability yet so much power into her character of Autumn, and she did it perfectly, especially for a first-time actress. The movie should have been nominated for Best Cinematography. The entire film looks like a dream and it looks so beautiful. Eliza Hittman for Best Director and Screenplay, Talia Ryder for Best Supporting Actress, even for Best Editing probably. This whole movie was ignored and we shouldn't have to stand for it. Emma, while not a perfect film, it had some amazing elements. First off, the cinematography looks like a painting. The music by Isabel Waller-Bridge is one of my favorites of the year. It seriously sounds like music from the time period. Mia Goth gets my favorite supporting actress performance of the year. She is so quirky and adorable and commands every scene that she's in. The assistant, the more I think about this movie, the better it gets. Julia Gardner absolutely should have been considered for Best Actress, and the screenplay itself I feel should have been nominated. First Cow, I thought this was a lock for some reason. I mean, it deserved Best Cinematography and maybe Best Score and maybe Best Director Kelly Reichardt. Kajillionaire deserved Best Actress Evan Rachel Wood, who deserves everything by the way, and Best Score from Emile Moseley. The Five Bloods, Delroy Lindo needed a Best Actor nomination, and it's a crime that they snubbed him. Feels Good Man was a fantastic documentary that should have been nominated, but my favorite documentary of the year was Dick Johnson is Dead, which absolutely deserved the Best Documentary nom. Charlie Kaufman had a brilliant screenplay with I'm Thinking of Ending Things and two amazing performances from Jessie Buckley and Jesse Plemons. And lastly, Palm Springs had a great screenplay that should have been considered. I'm not saying the nominations were bad, on the contrary, what I am saying is you suck.